Okay,
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Different Side of the Inside. I'm here with Clarence. We're going to continue our conversation on what's going on behind the walls. Today, we're going to talk about the constitutional rights of the inmates. Are they being ignored? Are they being considered? And we're also going to talk about the education process and what is needed concerning the inmates and their attempts to comply with all the rules that are set before them. And, people are trying to get home. And so we're going to continue our conversation. And Clarence, here you go.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Okay, thank you, Deborah. I wanted to touch bases on inmates' constitutional rights, and I also want to delve into the education system behind the walls, because they kind of go hand in hand with each other. Inmates spend a lot of time on the yard, in their cells, and CDCR attempts to make programs available through in-cell programming. No teachers. I guess they get this money. They're funded to provide education. So I think instead of doing the hiring and opening up the classrooms and removing people from these yards and putting them in these classrooms, I believe that they just go with these pre-scripted videos and for in-cell study purposes, where an inmate has a choice to log on or turn to the institution channel that provides education without a teacher. But it's still an opportunity to take advantage of, to not make excuses for no one, because one can just educate itself with the dictionary if he chooses to learn. A lot of times, there's a lot of inmates who are not apprised of the rules and regulations, and there's a lot of times where the California Department of Corrections does not provide updated rules and regulations, but they enforce these rules and regulations against us sporadically and surprisingly. They threw new rules at us, and they as of lately, they haven't been providing the rules and the regulation updates. However, inmates' rights and entitlements under the state law and under the federal law are protected under the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution, and their health and their safety is supposed to be secured up under the 8th Amendment of the United States Constitution. So, with that being said, a lot of inmates don't understand that what they're being subjected to is not something that you have to subject yourself to. There's things that can be challenged because they do have a grievance process, and if you choose to seek answers and try to file grievances on these matters, you have the opportunity because the system is available. But at the same token, if you get too smart for California Department of Corrections, they have appeals coordinators and they have system in play where, a lot of things are just blanket denials because an inmate cannot address his constitutional rights in the court of law until he exhausts his administrative remedies, which means that you have to file a grievance at the lowest level to the highest level and explain your situation and explain what your problems are. And according to the rules and regulations, California Code of Regulations, there's listings of regulations that are supposed to provide for due process. But when processes are challenged, the same people who violate those due processes are the same people who respond and answer the grievances, the complaints that are being filed against them. So this is like a lose-lose situation, because they don't really like people who file grievances, because it makes them have to critique themselves and critique their reports and double check and make sure that they cross all their T's and dot all their I's. And this is something that most correctional officers don't even know how to do. It's a shame to say that inmates are constantly being punished by vague reports that hold them responsible for their actions. And inmates know when you do certain things, you're gonna get written up. This, I really don't like sounding like everything's at the fault of the system, because the inmates have all these opportunities and abilities to address certain matters. But I know for a fact that CDCR are circumventors. The rules that apply, they're not in compliance with. I know that they connive, they turn a blind eye on the law, and they cover up their mistakes and they cover up their own misconduct, and they use word terms and blanket denials and rejections of your grievances to not really address what the problems are or come to some form of resolution. Inmates, on the other hand, if you don't teach yourselves to read and to write and to be able to understand the rules and the regulations, you're not going to be able to uphold your rights, your constitutional rights. You hear a lot of inmates speak about, well, I got the right to do this and I got the right to do that, Okay, that's true. But you haven't read up on your rights, and you haven't read up on the procedures that entitle you to these rights, nor have you put forth your efforts to comply with these regulations. So I find myself helping a lot of inmates who are subject to infractions, because I know that, in most cases,
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
To the degree that they get punished for these minor infractions. And I say minor infractions because in prison, there was a time where our due process was very, very prevalent. It stood out, it meant something. Then back in, I think, 1996, they came up with a case called Sandin versus Connor, where our due process rights were diminished, and that the courts had made a determination that at some point of an inmate's incarceration, inmates will be subjected to going to the hole, going to ad seg, being locked up. So, going to the hole, for whatever the reason may be, it actually allowed the court to set a precedent to diminish our due process with these regulations that they had in place, to say that it was okay to lock us up for lengthy and unspecified amounts of time, and there was no real due process issue. How they came to that conclusion is mind-blowing, but that's what they did. And now inmates are forced to exhaust their administrative remedies, and this is like a procrastination scheme, because when you submit a 602, which is a grievance, you have to wait. They tell you have to submit your 602 within 30 days of the time of whatever happened to you took place. So once you submit it, they get 60 days to respond respond. That means you have to wait. No matter what's going on, it could be pressing, it could be an emergency, it could be something that has to be actually addressed right away. But they give themselves 60 days to respond. And then normally the issue is moot. It doesn't make no difference because you probably done got hurt, or you probably end up went to the hole, or they probably just took your property, or they probably took your visits. And anyway, and they've taken action against you before resolution of the grievance. So this is another form of dissuading an inmate from even trying to pursue his rights through the grievance process. But I like to just say that I do a lot of helping inmates get back into the courts, or filing petitions, or filing writs, or filing civil rights complaints, because I know they don't really understand how to go about doing it because they've not exercised it, they haven't studied, and I really do wish that some of them would use some of their time to get involved in these type of, their academics, their courses that are available to help you learn and understand what your rights are and how to enforce, upholding and protecting your rights. Now, a lot of what happens in prison is that because inmates don't know how to uphold their rights, the prison officials, they trample over their rights. They process these write-ups, they charge them, they find them guilty. Sometimes they punish you before the process. They just, it's like punishment without due process. They just get so that the system becomes so monotonous, that they just go ahead and just skip hurdles, jump hoops to get to the end means, and they just really don't afford you all your due processes. But there's ways to combat that, and there's ways to challenge it, to halt these type of injustices. And I just think that education is so important for the inmate population. And
you have 60 seconds remaining.
I don't categorize no inmates. All of us are in the same situation. We're all subject to the same, reprisals, the same punishments, the same, effects that these regulations and the implementations of CDCR has its effects on every last one of us. We're going to have to pause for a second.
All right, we're back.
Okay, thank you for the pause. Yes, I would like to see more of the inmate population, becoming more educated and self-taught on how to identify violations of your constitutional rights and entitlements. I would like for us to really help each other, to help teach each other, show each other the way, because this is not something, they don't have a course for your constitutional rights being upheld in prison. That's not something that they would want you to know about, because, upholding your constitutional rights means accountability. That means making people accountable for violating your rights, and the people who violate your rights are the prison officials who are the gatekeepers. These are the people who are supposed to be responsible for your safekeeping. These are the people who are supposed to be responsible for compliance with the regulations and the laws. And when they violate your rights and they violate these laws, just like they hold us accountable with these 115s and these shoe terms for these minor infractions, what they are violating is on a grander scale. They're violating your constitutional rights, what our forefathers and our